If you clicked on this video to find out what really happened when Dior shut its doors on Meghan Markle, stay right here, because what unfolded in Paris wasn't just a rejection, it was a complete unraveling of a carefully planned comeback. And it all began the second her heels touched the Paris pavement. People who were there swear the mood shifted instantly, as if the air itself sensed what was coming. Meghan didn't arrive like someone on a quiet getaway. She arrived like a woman expecting a coronation. Her team presented the trip as a low-key fashion excursion, but inside Dior's marble corridors, the anticipation was already humming. The staff had been briefed days before. Meetings? None. Fittings? None. Exceptions? Absolutely not. Her name wasn't only absent from schedules, it had been flagged. Weeks earlier, a crisp internal note circulated through Dior's offices. No unexpected appearances from the Duchess. All communications routed strictly through legal. It was short, icy, and unmistakably final. But Meghan walked into the building with the kind of confidence only she can summon, glowing as if she were stepping into an ad campaign. She approached the receptionist and announced she was there for a couture appointment. Except the book in front of them said otherwise. No appointment. No reservation. No collaboration planned. What she had imagined would be a warm reunion with the fashion house turned into an exchange so polite it cut deeper than an outright confrontation. Within hours, the whispers spread like perfume through the fashion district. Dior had turned her away. No scene. No raised voices. Just that unmistakable Dior coolness. A communications lead stepped out, met her gaze without flinching, and said the line that slammed the door shut, "There's no appointment for you, ma'am. Have a pleasant day." That was it. Nothing more. Meghan wasn't just dealing with a scheduling error. It was humiliation dressed in designer understatement. Her team had spent months preparing their pitch, slick presentations, bold concepts. She wanted to be Dior's new face, a modern Diana with an edge. Elegant, iconic, symbolic. The proposals were polished and persuasive. But Dior's executives were unmoved. One of them reportedly made a comment that spread through the industry like wildfire. "We dress legends. We don't manufacture them out of controversy." And with that, her name was quietly erased from their internal contact lists. That polite denial at the door wasn't accidental. It was simply the final gesture of a choice Dior had already made. Then came the receipts. Leaked documents confirmed Meghan had been reaching out for months. The last pitch reportedly compared her image to Princess Diana, calling herself a rebirth of Diana's grace for a new era. That was the moment the board balked. They didn't want drama anywhere near the brand. They wanted distance and fast. So they blacklisted her. No future collaborations.
Don't you miss that feeling, getting lost in a story that feels like it was written just for you? If your heart needs a little magic, click on the link in I button or in the description or pinned comment. It's waiting at infowebster.com. Go feel something again.
No reconsiderations. Nothing. And once Dior made their stance clear, other luxury houses fell in line without hesitation. Then things took a messy turn. Even though Dior tried to keep the decision discreet, social media suddenly erupted with posts praising Meghan's supposedly flawless Dior fashion moments. The captions were suspiciously uniform, the hashtags practically copy and paste. Dior's team traced the activity to PR agencies tied to Meghan. To them, it looked like a deliberate attempt to fabricate a connection that didn't exist. That was the breaking point. Editors across Europe received a short, surgical statement. Dior has no current or planned partnership with the Duchess of Sussex. No theatrics. No irritation. Just a cold, definitive line drawn in the sand. In fashion, silence speaks louder than scandal. But Dior's silence was only the beginning. Within the vast LVMH network, Dior, Fendi, Givenchy, Louis Vuitton, Meghan's name was added to what insiders call a restricted list. These lists aren't public. They're whispered about behind closed doors. Names considered too risky, too unpredictable, too capable of sparking the wrong kind of headlines. Givenchy, the label that once made her look like royalty, quietly stepped back first. Chanel dismissed her pitches without hesitation. Even stylists who once loved pulling samples for her suddenly got the message. Avoid association. Paris didn't exile her loudly. It simply withdrew, and in the fashion world, that kind of hush can be career-ending. But Meghan isn't the type to retreat. Days later, she made a grand entrance at Balenciaga's Paris Fashion Week show. Cameras exploded in flashes. For a brief moment, it looked like she might reclaim her footing. But those in the room felt something shift when she stepped inside. One stylist muttered, "The air just froze." Editors adjusted in their seats. Designers smiled with tight professionalism that didn't reach their eyes. The applause she got was polite, not enthusiastic. The photos online looked glamorous, but insiders described the entire scene as painfully staged. No designers sought her out. No stylists rushed over. The conversations behind her back had nothing to do with her outfit. They centered on how far she drifted from fashion's inner circle. Then came the whisper that spiraled out of control. Backstage at Balenciaga, assistants and stylists started murmuring about a strong, overpowering scent surrounding her, like heavy perfume masking something else. One person said it, another repeated it, and soon it morphed into a full-blown backstage rumor. Whether it was exaggerated or unfair didn't matter. Gossip in Paris moves faster than any runway change. Within hours, fashion workers across the city were messaging each other. Some brushed it off as rude. Others claimed it reflected the tension she carried into every space. It wasn't about hygiene, it was about aura. Paris can overlook a diva moment. Paris can forgive scandal. But bring in an atmosphere that feels suffocating, literally or metaphorically, and Paris will not forget. Then came the moment that pushed the city from uneasy to outraged. After leaving the show, Meghan was seen filming near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the very place where Princess Diana's life was cut short. Her team insisted it was just part of a scenic drive, but almost no one in Paris believed that. Meghan herself had drawn parallels between her life and Diana's before, so choosing that location felt calculated. Too calculated. To Parisians, this wasn't bold. It was sacrilege. People whispered, she's trying to rewrite Diana's story as her own. For those who remember the tragedy, it felt insensitive and morbid. A former Dior stylist put it perfectly, Diana's legacy belongs to memory, not marketing. That was the moment Meghan's already fragile standing in Paris shattered. By the end of Fashion Week, the illusion had dissolved completely. What had been promoted as her grand re-entry into high fashion turned into a stark reflection of how far she'd fallen. Balenciaga hadn't even dressed her. The gown was borrowed. The only real Balenciaga item she wore was the black pumps on her feet. The rest came through unofficial intermediaries, which in fashion language means you weren't invited, just tolerated. No fittings. No couture treatment. She wasn't the star. She was background. And Paris responded exactly how Paris responds when it wants you gone. Editors who once adored her kept their distance. Stylists politely declined her requests. Photographers who once angled for her shot stopped lifting their cameras. Not to punish her, just to signal rejection, the Parisian way. Not loud, not cruel, just uninterested. When she boarded her flight home, the flashes of cameras were still there, but the warmth behind them had evaporated. Paris had made up its mind. The Dior incident wasn't an isolated embarrassment. It was a sign of something deeper, the unraveling of an image built on illusion rather than acceptance. She arrived hoping couture could restore what controversy had eroded. But fashion doesn't mend reputations. Fashion reveals truth. She wanted to channel Diana's spirit, but Paris saw it as performance rather than presence. And performance without authenticity is just costume. She came to France as the Duchess who once captivated global headlines. She left as a reminder of how quickly the fashion world shuts its doors. Paris didn't shout. It didn't criticize. It simply turned its gaze elsewhere. One editor from Le Figaro summed it up in a single line. The difference between Diana and Meghan was never grace. It was truth. And by the time her plane lifted into the sky, the whispers circling the city had cooled into a verdict. Meghan didn't walk out of Paris as fashion royalty. She walked out as a cautionary tale. Because in haute couture, admiration isn't demanded, it's earned. And Paris decided she'd earned one thing only, Distance.